It's one of history's great mysteries, right? How did two of the most powerful and advanced nations on Earth, after making these incredible connections with the outside world, both decide to just slam the door shut? Today we're going to unpack that exact paradox, the great isolation of China and Japan.
Okay, so take a look at this. A giraffe in 15th century China. How in the world did that get there? Well, this painting is hard proof of a forgotten age of exploration. This animal was brought there by a fleet so huge, so advanced, it makes the ships Columbus used look like, I don't know, little rowboats. This is a snapshot of a time when China, not Europe, was the undisputed ruler of the seas.
To really get this, we've got to rewind the clock to the early Ming Dynasty. I mean, while Europe was kind of just shaken off the Middle Ages, China was already a global superpower. It had technology and a navy the likes of which the world had literally never seen.
And the man in charge of this unbelievable fleet was Admiral Zheng He. Now, he wasn't a conqueror in the way we usually think of one. He was more of a diplomat, a commander, and really the face of Chinese power for the entire known world.
This number just blows my mind. 5 times bigger. We're not talking about ships that were just a little larger. The Ming treasure ships absolutely dwarfed the little caravels the European explorers would use decades later. These things were basically floating cities, designed to project pure awe and power wherever they sailed.
So over 7 massive voyages, Zheng He's fleet crisscrossed the Indian Ocean, making it all the way to the coast of Africa. And here's the key. They weren't there for conquest. They were handing out these lavish gifts, setting up diplomatic ties, and basically bringing the rest of the world into China's orbit.
Which brings us to the big central mystery of it all. After doing all this, after building the most powerful navy the planet had ever seen, the Ming Emperor ordered the records of these voyages to be burned. The ships themselves were just left to rot in their harbors. You have to ask, why?
Well, the answer isn't some slow, gradual decline. It was a dramatic, deliberate, and empire-changing decision to turn their backs on the very oceans they had just commanded.
And by the 1500s, this wasn't just a general feeling, it was official government policy. They started putting these incredibly strict controls on any and all contact with foreigners, a complete 180 from the era of Zheng He.
So, what was the philosophy behind this massive shift? Well, the ruling class was heavily guided by Confucian principles. And in their view, social harmony and stability were everything. A society based on agriculture was predictable and virtuous. But merchants, foreign trade, that was all seen as unpredictable, messy, potentially corrupting, just a less honorable path than working the land.
And here's where you see just how deep this ideology went. When the Ming dynasty eventually fell, the Manchus came in and established the new Qing dynasty. You'd think, okay, new management, maybe a new direction, right? Nope. They didn't just continue the policy, they doubled down on it.
The king actually imposed even stricter rules on foreign traders. It got so intense that out of all the European powers trying to get a foot in the door, only the Dutch were actually willing to agree to their super restrictive terms.
And think about this for a second. Kangxi was one of China's most powerful and curious emperors. He was personally fascinated by European science. He even let Jesuit missionaries hang out in his court. And yet, even he couldn't or wouldn't reverse the nation's course. The policy of isolation was just that entrenched.
Okay, now let's hop over to Japan. Because during this exact same time period, it was on a completely different and way more violent path, but one that led to a surprisingly similar place. So, forget about a stable, unified empire like China. For 100 years, Japan was just tearing itself apart with internal conflict. It was a fractured land of endless battles, a time known as the Warring States period.
The key players in this whole drama were the daimyo. These were powerful warlords, basically regional kings. And of course, their loyal samurai warriors. Their constant struggle for power and land defined this entire era.
And then, right into the middle of this 100-year-long free-for-all, a totally unexpected new player arrives on the scene. Portuguese traders literally get shipwrecked on the Japanese coast, and they brought a few things with them that were about to change everything.
So they brought some new opportunities for trade, and they brought Christianity. But the most important thing, the real game changer that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in Japan, was the firearm. See, before guns showed up, Japanese warfare was all about the samurai and his sword, but firearms, they're a great equalizer. Suddenly, any ambitious daimyo could arm his soldiers with a weapon that could totally disrupt traditional samurai formations. It gave them a massive edge in the fight to unify the country.
So you take this disruptive new technology, you throw it into a century of total chaos, and it acts like a massive catalyst. It dramatically sped up the whole bloody process of forging a single nation from the fires of war.
And you can see on this timeline just how fast things moved. For nearly a century, it's a brutal stalemate. Then, in the 1540s, firearms arrive. Just a couple of decades later, the warlord Oda Nobunaga starts the final push for unification, and by 1603, it's a done deal.
And the power that rose from all that chaos was the Tokugawa shogunate. This was a new military government that finally crushed the other warring daimyo, ended the civil war for good, and brought all of Japan under its iron-fisted rule.
So what's one of the first big decisions this newly unified Japan makes? Well, in an incredible historical echo of China, it chose to lock the doors. After using foreign technology to grab power, the Tokugawa shogunate turned right around and severely restricted all contact with the outside world.
And that really brings us to the core paradox. You have two completely different paths leading to the exact same destination. China turned inward from a position of immense global power and stability. Japan turned inward from a century of chaos after using foreign tools to piece itself together. Both of them, for their own reasons, decided the outside world was a threat that needed to be managed and controlled.
It's really one of history's great what-ifs. These two incredibly powerful empires sealed themselves off from the world, right as Europe was on the brink of its industrial and scientific revolution. So the big question you have to ask is, by closing their doors to protect the worlds they had built, what future did they unknowingly give away?